Hello everyone! Huge thank you to anyone who is clicking on this video and anyone who is returning. So it's the month of May, and usually I would be participating in the mid-year freakout book tag. However, I've noticed that going over the questions, a lot of my answers, or quite a number of them, would just be, I don't have an answer to this, or I don't know. And I thought that, instead of doing the mid-year freakout book tag, I'd rather just create my own little prompts and just give you a check-in on how my reading has been going, through the halfway point of the year. So yeah, no mid-year freakout book tag, but just a little check-in on how my reading has been going. So I'll first start off with discussing my favorite books so far in this year. So the first book I have here to show you is what I would consider my favorite book of the year so far, and that is Armadale by Wilkie Collins. This is about two men who are both named Alan Armadale, and it recounts how their lives become intertwined with one another and how it becomes very complicated when this mysterious woman named Lydia Gwilt enters the scene. And, this is a sensation novel. It's a Victorian sensation novel, Wilkie Collins novel. It's filled with twists and turns. There's a lot of melodrama. But what I really liked about this book are the characters, particularly Lydia. She's definitely one of the most complex Victorian heroines. I say that word lightly. She's not a heroine. She's very much the villain in the story, but she's so complex and she's such a rich character that you can't help but root for her. At least that's how I felt. I definitely recommend trying out Armadale, if anything, just to read about this character. I'm a Lydia Gwilt fan. So the next book I have to show you is Mystery and Manners by Flannery O'Connor. For those who don't know, Flannery O'Connor is one of my favorite authors of all time, so no big surprise that she managed to get on this list. And yeah, this is a work of nonfiction. Her prose, essays, talks regarding various different topics, mainly to do with literature, fiction writing, the Catholic writer. And even if you're not a writer, even if you're just a reader like me, I do feel that you can still get a lot out of Mystery and Manners. Reading this book, you get a really good sense of how astute and insightful she was, and it has definitely influenced me and how I approach fiction and literature, for sure. Just even in her nonfiction, there's just some great lines in here. So yeah, maybe if you're into fiction writing, if you're a fan of Flannery O'Connor, I definitely recommend you checking this out. I don't know if you're neither of those things, if you would be interested, but yeah, this was nevertheless a favorite of mine. Next up, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is very much a Sherlock Watson type of mystery where we're following two individuals investigating the death of a government official, in which a plant has, exploded or has grown out of the person. And this is very much an exquisite blending of genres. It has, fantasy, it's got a mystery, there's a bit of sci-fi in it, and I adore the world building. Very unique. The type of unique world building that gets my neurons firing. Not to mention we have a mystery that is just intriguing in of itself. It hooks you in, it's fast paced. I found myself tearing through this book, invested in all the details that are given to us, trying to figure out what exactly is behind, the mystery and all of it. So this one has gotten a lot of buzz lately, ever since its release. I think rightly so. When it comes to mysteries in the fantasy genre, I would definitely recommend The Tainted Cup. Next, we have Kushiel's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. This is the first book in a trilogy. It is fantasy, however, it is also alternative history because it pretty much does take place in medieval Renaissance Europe, but the countries just go by different names. However, there are the presence of demigods and fallen angels as well. So our main character is Phaedra, and she has been pricked by what is known as Kushiel's Dart. So she's cursed, in a sense, to experience pain and pleasure as the same. So she was raised to be a courtesan, but then she's also adopted and was trained to be a spy. So this is a book that's very heavy on the political intrigue, and you see Phaedra use her skills as a courtesan and as a spy to participate in this very dangerous, politically, intrigue-heavy field. I really enjoyed this book. This was a hefty read. This is over 600 pages, and in a way, it felt like 3 books in one. but never in a manner where it felt overcrowded, where it was overstaying its welcome. It was a rich book, and I felt that it had really great pacing, enough time, enough detail to properly explore these characters, these relationships. And this book has a very interesting, unique main character, one who I was very invested in following, because she's not only going through a lot physically, there's a lot mentally and emotionally as well that you're kind of following throughout the story. So yeah. Lastly, for my favorite books of the year so far, we have The Go-Between by L.P Hartley. This was published in 1953, and we're following our main character, who is, an older gentleman, like 50s, 60s, and he's looking back on on the time when he was 12 years old, in the year 1900, when he was staying over during the summer at his friend's estate, and he meets, his friend's sister, whom he begins to have a crush on, and he kind of is pulled into the role of messenger for her and her secret lover. He basically ends up becoming the go-between for this illicit love affair that has disastrous consequences. So it was very interesting seeing the world, seeing this event, this love affair, sort of played out through the veil of innocence, the innocence of a child. And yes, while there is a star-crossed romance that is in this book, the main beef of the story is, about the loss of innocence. It's about disillusionment, which are themes that I actually really enjoy reading about. And this was a great book. Now, moving on, I'll talk about my most surprising reads of this year. So the first one, the one that really kind of surprised me, is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. This is a YA fairy tale retelling. These were all the rage back then in the 2010s. This one retells the Goose Girl and offers a very intriguing plot. It's not just a straight up retelling of the Goose Girl. It does offer, a bit of mystery, a bit of intrigue, and it's over 500 pages, or it's basically 500 pages, but I was really surprised how well paced it was. It never felt like a slog at some point. It had a main character that, is sort of that snippy type of character, but I did find her, instead of being annoying, I found her a bit endearing as well, considering that you learn more about her background and her reasoning behind a lot of her actions. I even enjoyed the romance in here. It was very much a cute, cat and mouse type of romance. The second one I will mention is Kushiel's Dart, because that was a genuine surprise. BDSM is a major element in the story of Kushiel's Dart, and I'm not really into BDSM. I don't read books about it. I don't care to read about it. However, the way it was incorporated, into the story, into the lore of the book, it worked. I felt that the scenes, the BDSM scenes, they weren't there for like the sake of titillation or anything like that. In fact, they also revealed something about the character of Phaedra, because Phaedra kind of goes through this this sort of emotional turmoil where she becomes sort of disgusted by herself in a way, and she starts wondering, is Kushiel's dart, is it a blessing or is it a curse? And with surprises, I of course encountered some disappointments, and one of them was unfortunately the sequel to Little Thieves, Painted Devils. This one was less pages than Little Thieves, and this one took me longer to get through. In fact, I contemplated DNFing this one, and it's really down to the pacing. I felt that the pacing in Little Thieves was much better. I felt that the main driving force of the story was constantly put on pause so that we can focus on, Vanya's relationship with Conrad, with her family, that sort of thing. It just got really slow. Like the middle part of this book was just so meandering. Next, I want to go over two significant purchases that I made in the year so far. So 2 additions to the collection that I do want to share, because I'm very much, I'm a reader, but I'm also a book collector. So the first one I have here to show you is A Circle in the Fire and Other Stories by Flannery O'Connor. This is a Folio Society book that I had no idea existed. So here it is. Of course, it has a slip case, but this is the book itself. I'll show you some of the illustrations as well. I'd say they're pretty fitting to the tone of O'Connor's work, and the one who did the illustration was Deanna Staffo. Fantastic work. So yeah, very happy to own this. Then we have a new addition to my Subterranean Press collection, so now my collection extends beyond just Josiah Bancroft's books. We have Speak Easy by Catherynne M. Valente. This edition, this copy, or this book, there were only 1,250 copies of it, and they were all signed, of course. I got number 326. So Speak Easy, for those who don't know, is a sort of 1920s retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, but it's also a reimagining of, the relationship between Zelda and Scott Fitzgerald. That being said, please don't go into this book and then leave out of it thinking that you've cracked the code on the Fitzgerald's relationship. I've seen weird debates on these two's, relationship, and if you want to know more about them, I just recommend a biography. Maybe read their letters to one another. Putting aside the fact that it's based off of Scott and Zelda, as a story on its own, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely not going to be a book for everyone, for sure. This is definitely a book that delves into the surreal. If you are a person who prefers a straightforward narrative, this is not the book for you. There are going to be scenes where you're wondering, is this even real? Is this happening? I have heard a lot of people say that this is very much just, all vibes, no plot. I disagree. I definitely think this is a book that kind of examines, artistic freedom and agency, but then all caged in sort of the dangerous glamour of the early 20th century America. Lastly, for this video, I'll be going over some of the books that I'm looking forward to starting in the latter half of the year. And the first one I have is Lost Gods by Brom. I've never read a Brom book before, but I'm looking forward to this one. And admittedly, I picked this one up because the premise did remind me a tiny bit of Senlin Ascents, where you have our main character. He's just got out of jail. He wants to be reunited with his, pregnant girlfriend. However, he's betrayed. He ends up going into this sort of purgatory, and it's about him trying to claw his way out of purgatory to be reunited with his girlfriend and his unborn child. So, yeah, that premise kind of reminded me of Senlin Ascents. And for those who don't know, Brom's books have some beautiful illustrations, so can't wait to know who these characters are. So yeah, that's Lost Gods. The next title I'm looking forward to reading is The Way of Edam by Philip Chase. Philip, you can actually find here on BookTube. I highly recommend you watch his videos. Yeah, this is the first book in his Edam trilogy, and I really want to get more into some self-published fantasy work. And this one is very intriguing. I think it's going to be a very rich type of fantasy world, and there's an element of this holy war that's involved. So yeah, looking forward to The Way of Edam. I don't know when I'll get to this. I definitely want to tackle some of my standalones before I get into sort of the first book of series. And speaking of first books in series, another book I want to tackle is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. Now, this is the first book in another trilogy. So I have a lot of first books of trilogies here. And Mark Lawrence, I think he's a pretty renowned author already with regards to fantasy. He also has a YouTube channel as well. It follows, I think, two main perspectives. A boy who's lived his entire life in a library, and then another girl who's spent her life in a tiny settlement, and how their points of views, their perspectives, their journeys kind of intertwine with one another. I don't know anything much beyond that, but I am looking forward to trying out Mark Lawrence before. I have never read a book of his before, but I feel like this will be a good way to start. So that was my mid-year check-in video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Let me know down in the comments, how has your reading been going in this first half of the year? What were your favorite books? What were some surprises, some disappointments? Let me know down below. So, share those titles. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!